Welcome to PodCapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. And this week, we're talking straight team codename Diamond Force. I swear there's a point to the wordy name, I swear. I've been promised there's a point to the wordy name. Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to PodCapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. My name is Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and are joined each week by a very special different guest. Now, I'm joined by two guests this week. I'm joined by Michael Tanner and Lukasz Kowalczuk. Did I say that right?
Almost.
Damn!
Don't worry. There is no, and there is. I don't know any English speaking native person who is able to say it correctly. So it's Lukasz Kowalczuk.
I thought I would be the one to get it. I looked it up. I thought, how do you
really?
All my research for nothing.
Almost there.
I'll take almost. I'll just call you Lukasz.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay. Lukasz and Michael with his boring name. No challenge whatsoever.
I know. Name in the world almost.
Yeah.
No good jokes from that name, really.
No, well, we got too many Michaels. That's the thing. There's 1,000,001 Michaels.
There needs to be like a culling and just get rid of it.
Just
like
round up like a third of all the Michaels. Not even 2/3, just like a third. And drop them into a volcano somewhere.
Just enough to make it matter.
Yeah, bring in some time for some new names, I think. But still, we've got something that is sort of looking towards the past a bit with you guys. Strike Team codename Diamond Force. This is a cool comic, guys.
I think it's pretty awesome. Not to toot my own horn, but...
No, this is the show where you toot your own horn, and I help you toot it. I used to be in the school orchestra. I could play trombone. I know how to toot horn. It's absolutely fine. And so I just wanted to, before we talk about the comic, I want to talk about you guys. What you do, your past work, who are you, what led to this comic. So, Michael, why don't you start us off?
Well, let's see. This is my first independently published comic. I am currently working on a young adult graphic novel series from Oni Press called Junior Braves of the Apocalypse. Volume 1 came out in 2015, and Volume 2 is finally coming out in August. But that's an ongoing graphic novel series. So that's like my main comic work that I'm doing. And then I've done stuff for anthologies and like still do anthology stuff because it's fun to do comics. Yeah. This is my first indie comic, so I've been learning as I've been going, and it is. I don't know if I'm going to do it again, to tell you the truth. It's
an experiment. You know, it's an experiment. Yeah. You try something, maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but you learn something from the experience no matter what.
Yes, it's all learning. Luckily, I had a great partner on this with Lukasz, who is just amazing.
I mean, looking at his artwork, I can tell that he is amazing. Lukasz, I've been on your Tumblr, first time I've ever done that, and I got to say, your artwork, it's really cool. What got you into this sort of thing?
Michael is the kind of writer that I like most because he's paying page rate. But jokes, that's true. It's not usual when we talk about small press or self-publishing stuff. So I would do this comic book for sure because the idea, the topic is very cool. It's my kind of stuff, but I did it faster when I was paid. Simple as that. So
you had incentive, you know.
I am doing comics for a living now. So that's the thing. However, people who are writers who are approaching me, they know exactly what I am capable of. So if Michael would like to do a comic book like history stuff about Second World War or something very serious, I wouldn't do it. Simple as that. So So the idea, it was enough when I heard that he wanted to do something with ninjas.
Yeah,
So
that's the magic word, ninjas.
Yeah. That, of course, that's the magic word. So it, so yes, so two reasons: the story, the idea, and the fact that I was reasonably paid for the work. So here I am.
Absolutely. I mean, your artwork, I'm not much of an art guy, but your stuff, the first thing I thought of was it sort of had this feel of like Ralph Bakshi and that heavy metal movie came out years ago.
Oh, I like that as a. I always like to describe Lucas's art when I'm telling people about it, that it's like 80s skate punk art. It's the kind of stuff you would see drawn on notebooks on the skate punk kids you knew. And that's exactly why, like, really a huge part of why this book happened is I knew I wanted Lukasz to draw something for me because
he must work with me.
Yeah, I was like, I need to write something that I think he would draw really well because I just want to work with him. And so like that turned out to be ninjas. So There we go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm behind any project that has ninjas, unless they're surfing, in which case you can fuck right off.
Wait. Oh, well, yeah, all right.
I'm sorry, but when you put Leslie Nielsen in that kind of hat, I just check out. I'm sorry.
Is Leslie Nielsen still alive? I was just talking to someone.
He sadly passed away a few years ago. Yeah.
I walked past him in an airport once, and
Ooh.
It was one of the greatest moments of my life. I won't lie.
Just to be in his presence.
Yeah, like it was on a people mover at an airport. So I was going one way, he was going the other, and he just nodded to me, and I was like, I can die now. That's all I needed.
That's a knighthood. that's amazing. Oh my god. The best story I have of that sort of thing happen is that I once met the Duke of Edinburgh. That's it. That's nothing.
That's nothing compared to Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, nonagenarian royal racist. You met Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie goddamn Nielsen.
Oh my god. So where are you both right now? Where are you recording from?
I am in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, the Windy City. I just wanted to do that joke. I love making that joke. I'm sorry.
Well, all right.
Okay. I am in Rumia. It's northern Poland. We can call it. It's almost like New Jersey, something like that.
It's the New Jersey of Poland.
This comic, obviously, ninjas. I think it's great jumping off point. I don't think it really does it justice. So let's just talk about the background to Strike Team Codename Diamond Force. What led to this? What was the thought process going into it?
Well, that's easy because I just wrote a whole big Kickstarter project update about this. So really what it came from is I'm an 80s kid. I'm in my late 30s now. So I grew up luckily with a cable subscription to like HBO and Cinemax. So I grew up watching those exploitation movies from the 70s and early 80s.
I call them wow movies.
Yeah, like
because that's every single soundtrack is the same.
Or then like when you get to like 1982, 1983, there's a lot more synthesizer in there. So grew up watching those movies. So they're a huge part of like cultural touchstones for me. And then as an adult, just recently, I discovered a podcast called The Grind Bin where they watch those movies and they talk about them. And they did an episode on a movie called Raw Force, which I'd never seen before. And I still haven't seen the movie, but their episode on it is so good and goes to the plot. And having like re-listened to that in preparation for writing the update, I had forgotten how much from that movie I had taken for Strike Team Codename Diamond Force. So essentially, I just wanted to write a like martial arts, something that was clearly filmed in the Philippines, and have it be a comic book adaptation for one of those movies. At the time, I didn't really know of any kind of 80s movie homage comics. Now I've discovered that there are quite a few. Most of them are more parody based. Like a great one is Amerikarate, which is it's a very good book, but it's very much a parody and it's a comedy based on 80s martial arts movies. Where I wanted to do something that was more an homage and that would make people smile, not necessarily laugh out loud or, oh, this is a funny book. I wanted them to enjoy it and smile.
Made
and be like,
me smile.
Yeah, I get that. So the easiest is, like even like the premise is even referencing video games. So it's like Bad Dudes was the president's been kidnapped by ninjas. The bad dudes must save him. So this is like when the president's mistress is kidnapped by ninjas.
Miss Candy Cane.
Miss Candy Cane, which is a reference to
I mean, if
a
you
character.
name your child that, you are just asking for trouble.
You're setting them up. It's like if you name your son Harry and your last name is Knuckles. You know that guy is just going to be like a mob enforcer.
Yeah. Hey, Harry, why do you never go into, like, real estate agents? Well, it's on account of my folks, you see. They named me Harry Knuckles, so naturally this was the only job I could get. That was a pitch-perfect American accent, I think you'll find. Pitch perfect.
That was a great accent from somewhere in America.
We all know that all Americans sound the same.
We do. According, if I go by like I don't know, Hugh Laurie and his American accent, it is
Hey, he fooled people. His co-workers didn't know that he was British.
That's really weird because I don't know any American region where people chew their words as much as Hugh Laurie does when he's speaking like an American. I am going to say everything just like this, and I'm chewing every single word.
Everybody lies.
Anyway, I digress. Anyway.
This is the show for digression.
So yeah,
this is the show for digression.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Accents, they're hard.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Strike Team Codename Diamond Force is essentially just riffing on those 80s action exploitation movies.
Which I haven't seen a lot of. I've seen one or two 70s martial arts movies because I really like Bruce Lee and I've watched a lot of his movies. That was basically it for me, and I think there's a hint of that in the exploitation genre, if you will.
Oh yeah. I would recommend Raw Force. I would recommend Force 5. Also, you can see why I put Force in the name is because a lot of them, like the teams all had Force, or even more mainstream, like the Dirty Harry movie, Magnum Force from the mid 70s. It's just a perfect kind of go-to action name.
It's evocative. Force.
Yeah.
It's good.
Force.
Absolutely. And I mean, as I say, I never got really into the whole Grindhouse thing, but that's the great thing about this comic is that it feels evocative of something. And immediately when I started reading it, not knowing that much about it, I thought, "Oh, this is very exploitation-y, Grindhouse-y." And I think if that comes across, you've done your job.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so let's talk a bit about the characters of Strike Team Codename Diamond Force. We've got Duncan Winchell, Billy Chopsan, Sizzle St. Cyr, and Dix. Let's talk about the long and complicated backstory of Dix. Who is a robot that looks like a vagina.
I thought Lucas made him look more like a tiny penis.
He does. Yes, I was deliberately misleading.
Okay.
Which, like, when I saw that, I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. But I'm like, the more I looked at it, I was like, no, that's perfect. Because really the idea in the realm of this being a movie, Dix would have been entirely in there because of Star Wars. Yeah. The makers of that movie would have been like, people like robots. Let's do a robot. Because he also is a little bit evocative of R2-D2. So, like, he would have been a cheap-looking, like,
R2-D2
model.
knockoff.
Yeah, and then I also imagine there'd be scenes where he'd be almost like a puppet. Like, his arms would be like Muppet arms, like on little sticks.
Danger, Will Robertson, danger!
Yes. So I was like, that's kind of the idea of, like, using Dix as a kind of weird future, like, he gets faxes, which would have seemed really futuristic in 1981.
Oh my god, this machine is printing a message on paper!
He's printing paper, and he's not connected to anything. He's somehow getting a phone call.
What Jetson's
wirelessly.
lifestyle is this?
Yeah. And of course, he has his no spoilers, but he has some secret tricks up his sleeve that help Diamond Force later in the comic.
Yes, because he's the digital investigation expert.
Yeah. Which I can't remember if it actually made it in there, but it might not be in the actual comic, but he is mislabeled, I think, in some of the quote unquote promo material for the movie, where he's digital intelligence expert or digital information expert, where it's just supposed to be like a mistake on the filmmaker's part, where they got his acronym wrong at different points.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. I mean, I'm with this sort of whole knockoff thing. I'm very aware if they were like, there's like I think it's like a Turkish Star Wars, or stuff like that. And it's always, obviously with that sort of craze, there's so many different people trying to come up with different things. And I heard that there was a lot of stuff going on in, as you said, in the Philippines, stuff like that.
Yeah.
People trying to make their own movies and stuff like that. And that's what I like about this, is because it's evocative. That's the word I keep going to keep on using, because it's one of the few words I know what it means. It's evocative of so many different things, and you can see. I could see a bit of, like, in Duncan Winchell. I saw a bit of Magnum PI in there, just with the lovely Tom Selleck mustache.
Yeah. I think my original art note to Lucas was I wanted him to look like Ravishing Rick Rude from 1980s WWF. And
That's
then
wrestling,
Lucas,
isn't it?
Yes.
And Lucas, you redid him more as Richard, the actor. I can't.
It's.
Shoot.
I don't remember the name.
Duncan looks a lot like an actor who was in a ton of those movies.
Ninja
So it
Terminator.
could have, and the idea is that that's the actor who played him in that movie. His first name is Richard, but I cannot remember his last name. I want to say Chamberlain, but I don't think that's not right.
No, not Johnson. Something like that, generic American name. He was an actor in Italian movies in 60s, I think, and then in 70s, I think, and then he went to Hong Kong and played in 6 or 7 flicks, and then they made 20 of it or something, just by playing with footage.
Yeah, they shot a ton of footage and then re-edited it and made different movies out of it.
You could make multiple movies with less stuff.
They made.
I 6 movies, but he appears in 20.
Oh god.
Yeah, I did a lot of research. It is my favorite part while working on new title is just watching such flicks and other books, comics, playing games. So I saw some very, very bad ninja movies from Hong Kong, and he was there. I still don't remember the name of the actor.
Well, there's all these actors that were in these sort of low-budget exploitation films. Eventually, they all just sort of start to blend together. Eventually, they just sort of
they keep showing up, and they had a lot of the directors had kind of stock companies of people they'd use. Or like in this guy's case, where where he appears in movies that he had no idea he was going to appear in. And also no one ever comments on his name being 2 different donut chains in the United States.
Dunkin' Donuts.
His first name is Duncan from Dunkin' Donuts, and Winchell from Winchell's Donuts.
I see. Being a very posh and snobbish British person, I had no idea. Donuts.
See, a donut is like a circle of fried dough that is often topped with other things. I don't know if they have them across the pond, as they say.
Is it similar?
Seriously.
Is it similar to a crumpet?
It's kind of like a crumpet, but in the States, a crumpet is more like an English muffin. Here, so 2 people separated by a common language.
There's an English muffin now? I thought there was just muffins.
Yeah, but you have changed. You
different from an English muffin. An English muffin is a crumpet.
Okay. We're getting sidelined by baked goods. What's going on here?
That's my favorite sideline.
It's one of mine too. I'm more of a tea person if I'm having it with my crumpets, but that's just me. I am the most British person either of you will ever meet, just so you know. So Billy Chop San, what was sort of the background for him, the inspiration behind him?
A lot of his look like Lukasz developed, so he can kind of, because I just kind of had like, he's a karate guy, and Lukasz like did the research and really like, I want him to look like this and the little mustache, and so I'll let Lukasz talk about it.
Initially, Michael wanted to make him like the guy from Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, right.
But it was like him, Billy Chop San, and Duncan Winchell was, in my opinion, the idea is to make the one like Recruit and the second one like the mentioned guy from Big Trouble in Little China. They were a little bit too 80s. So yeah, I did some research, and I don't remember exactly when the idea of when the final design come from. I think it's combination of few cheap movies, few ideas from cheap movies. I wanted his hair to be, big black amount of hair. No, that's not good. That's not good word. I wanted him to have more hair, black shirt.
Yeah, more like
I checked. Yeah, I checked the Bruce Lee. I also checked Bruce Lee clothing, and it's just a combination.
I thought he looks a bit like Bruce Lee, but not that much. So I think it's good to have different things, because otherwise someone will just look at him and say, "Oh, well, that's just Bruce Lee." And so that's the problem with some of some comics when the artists use exactly the person who is the characters from comics looks exactly like some well-known movie star. I don't like this approach at all. It's a bit obvious, a bit on the nose,
Yeah.
Yep.
An interesting thing about the kind of kung fu exploitation movies is after Bruce Lee's death, there are a ton of guys who were Bruce Lee, but Lee was spelled slightly differently.
I heard about this. Lee, was it Bruce Exploitation?
Bruce Lee.
Was it called what they called like Bruce Exploitation movies?
Yeah, Bruce Exploitation kind of became like its own genre of trying to just confuse people into thinking somehow like Bruce Lee was still in these movies. So that's Billy Chop San. He looks so much like the kind of guys who would be in like the lead in the Filipino action movie. Like the kind of the shaggier hair, the more 70s hair, even like
faint mustache.
Past where that would have been back. Yeah, like the really faint mustache. And like his dialogue is supposed to be like very super serious. Because one thing that always cracks me up in the kung fu movies is when the dub has someone like who delivers everything as if it's like the most important thing they've ever said.
We have to stop these ninjas and save the president's daughter.
Yeah, he's like, I am a karate master, and ninjas are my number one enemy. Like, it's just like so intense. So he's written to be like as over the top as would be common in those kind of movies.
Yeah, because if they act serious, then the audience will think it's serious, but they never do. They never do. And then there's Sizzle St. Cyr. Oh, blimey, what a name! Holy crap!
I'm so goddamn proud of that name.
You
have no
should
idea.
be.
When I came
These
up with
are all
that
good
name,
names. But oh wow. So when
Oh, go ahead.
The impression I got of her was she was sort of like a female Starsky / Hutch. Starsky, I can never say those names. Like sort of 70s cop, but she's a woman.
She's very much. Where a lot of essentially what I wanted was, for me, like even as a kid, like there'd be characters in movies who the movie told me that they were supposed to be sexy and attractive, but I never found them sexy or attractive. Like they just kind of looked like my mom's friends. The example I always go to is Miss Tessmacher in the Superman movies. I thought she was okay. I'm supposed to think she's sexy. Like she just looks like a 40-year-old barfly. Like
bear in mind, I live in England, so maybe my standards are lower.
maybe I don't know. Maybe Miss Tessmacher is your thing. So I wanted her to be sexy in quotes, like, but not actually look sexy. And I definitely wanted to like stay away from.
Well, the curly hair and the straight hair on the bottom
Yeah.
is sort of accomplishes that, I think.
Yeah, like a weird kind of like Cynthia Rothrock, where she's not really that attractive, but she could, in the realm of the movie, she was someone who probably knew martial arts and was good enough of an actor to be like the lead, and they were just like, oh no, she's the woman, so she's quote unquote sexy. Lucas, how did you settle on that hairstyle for her?
I think it was. I think it was the idea that the guys in the team don't have mullet, so it was natural choice to yeah. So who's gonna have the mullet? So that was the first thing, and I'm sure I just typed 70s haircut, woman haircut in Google. That was the thing. And Michael is saying that he didn't want this lady to be too sexy, and it was okay with me because I am not able to draw sexy women, and I have problems with drawing women, so it was good direction.
It played into your wheelhouse. You're comfortable with that?
Yes. I still have. I'm not able to. I won't sell any books with with drawing sexy women on the cover or inside because I just can't.
You're far too principled for that.
No, it's horses and women are the hardest thing to draw.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, I never even thought of that. Wow, horses and women. Imagine a centaur. The problems you'd have with a centaur, dear God.
Monster. But I think we did a good job with Candy Cane, though. I think she is evocative of she's a sexy enough lady.
Yeah, because I'm still learning.
Well, the artwork doesn't show it, honestly. I mean, I'll be honest. I took a quick peek on your Tumblr, and it freaks me out. I can't stop staring at this one image of this guy with like worms for teeth, and the worm teeth are all playing musical instruments.
I love that picture. That is an amazing picture.
Oh God!
Now I'm blushing. I have a big blush over my face. So.
Oh, just stop! It's bad. Oh,
yeah, that's something out of Nightmares or a 1930s Fleischer cartoon.
It's like something out of that new game Cuphead.
Yes.
I like that, and there's a ton of other stuff. I like it because it's perfect for this, and you use it in the comic to really great effect. There's some scenes, I'll be honest, made me blush a little. Jeez, there's the guy who's on the boat with the president's mistress, Candy Cane, and he's saying, "Hey, we're out in the middle of the ocean. What have you got to be worried about, mate? Everything's gonna be fine." Sword for the chest. And you see oh jeez, and let's put it this way, Capers, he doesn't hold back. It's all out there. You see it. This is not for the squeamish.
So that's just what, like Lucas was saying, that's just what ninjas do out in the ocean. They just stab people through the chest.
Yeah, absolutely. What else are they gonna do? Fish? Come on.
Yeah, like they have a whole island population and economy to support, so stabbing makes up a huge part of their day-to-day.
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about these ninjas. They're the Night Ninjas, perfect name for this group of ninjas, led by a guy called the Moon Ninja Master.
Yes.
What's his deal? What's up with him?
He is ultimate servant of the Dark Ninja Lord, who luckily, due to the actions of Diamond Force, no spoilers, but let's just say we're all very lucky to have Diamond Force.
Absolutely. Thank goodness for them. I don't know what we would have done. And his plan is he kidnaps the president's mistress and a whole bunch of other women, and it's up to Strike Team codenamed Diamond Force to save them all. I think the best way of describing these guys in terms of their actions is they're like a competent Team America World Police. They can actually get the job done without blowing things up, although sometimes they do, but it's unavoidable.
Yeah. So those guard towers aren't going to blow themselves up.
Yeah. I mean, that boat they're in, they've got to drive that into the beach. They can't just park it. Come on.
Yeah. No, the Diamond Cutter is a very very advanced boat with shore jumping technology. Maybe helped by
Diamond
ramps,
Cutter. That's a cool name. Yeah. Okay, and this comic it's a one shot, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just planned to be a one shot. With
that
the
annoys
idea,
me. That annoys me because I want more. You've got me hooked now.
That's kind of thing is it's a one shot as a self-contained story, but if there is demand, like there is more room for a Diamond Force movie sequel. But really what I wanted to do was kind of build because the idea is that it's a movie directed by this famous Italian exploitation director, and he's done other movies that could also be adapted into comic books. So if Diamond Force is received well, and and the reality is, if it makes back the money that I've spent to create it, and I have money to do another book, I certainly will. And
well, this is the world where comic creators live in. This is what there has to be demand. There has to be. It may be a bit rich for me to say, I like this book, give me more. I don't care what's going on in your personal, professional life. Give me stuff.
Right. Or the worst is like when you're at a convention and there are people who are like, oh, this looks cool. And I'm like, oh yeah, you can buy it. And they're like, oh no, I'm good. And you're like, okay,
well then why did you bother I think there should be a rule in conventions which is the same rule as with buskers. If you stop, you pay.
I like it. Oh, or the worst is when you're at a convention and they're like, "Oh, where can I buy this?" And you're like, "Right here, right now." Like,
Here's convenient.
Well, you can go to Comixology, or you can go to Amazon, or you can buy it right now and put that money straight into the creator's hands without everyone having to take their piece. But that's just
shipping and handling. You can walk out of the building with it in your hand.
Yes, it is a much better deal just to buy it directly from the creator.
Yeah.
But it's people it's interesting to sort of get off topic a little bit. Like the conventions. I'm in Southern California. Southern California has way too many comic book conventions.
Too many? Can you really have too many?
There is probably one a month within a 200-mile radius.
Wow.
So it's one of those things where I can table at a convention, but also it's generally the same audience who's going to each convention. So there's not a sense of urgency or a strong desire, because if you're not looking, if it's people who are there to be like, oh, I want to check out a Comic-Con, I've never gone, or it's people who are there to I'm here to buy the latest thing with Deadpool on it. When you're an indie creator or a small press person, getting them interested is part of the battle. But also in my area, they know that if they don't buy it from me right now, they will have another opportunity to buy it a month from now or 2 months from now. So that it's kind of a weird place to be in terms of comics just in Southern California. And I imagine I can only speak from the U.S. perspective, but I imagine the East Coast of the U.S., where there are major cities much closer together, probably have the same thing, where there are a lot of comic book conventions.
Places like New York and Chicago, I know, have a lot of cons. Not so much here in Edinburgh. It's we were lacking for this sort of stuff. There's one or two here and there. I know there was one in Glasgow last year. I'm going to see if I can go this year, just because even though I take the perilous trip to Glasgow and all the dark demons that lurk there. Yeah, you heard me, Glasgow.
You have I'm sorry, but you have I don't know, hour of travel to Glasgow. I have family in Glasgow. It's not so far away.
Oh, it's not far away, but once you get there, you remember that you're in Glasgow and danger lurks behind every corner.
Is Glasgow like the New Jersey of...
I am exaggerating. I'm exaggerating. It's very nice.
Yeah,
place.
I know, but however, you have big live it scene convention scene in UK, like about 15 or 20 good events, like real comic book events per year. So it's like you
we've got Thought
do
Bubble
have a
and
lot
places like
to
that.
do.
Yeah, we do. It's
Yeah, yeah.
It's just that I'm in Scotland, so I'm sort of trapped up here, beyond the north.
I wouldn't agree. It's not so far away. I traveled I was in September. I was in UK for International Comic International Comic Expo in Birmingham, and day earlier I was in London in Orbital. So it was like 2-hour trip by train from London to Birmingham. You have good connections. You have a lot of conventions to do.
Yeah, I mean it is, but the problem is I can't really afford the train. I mean, I went down to my parents' house in the village that time forgot this Christmas. I swear, when I was coming up the drive, I saw Rupert the Bear and Paddington Bear off in the distance. And the train there costs like over £100. Bit difficult for me. Buses was much cheaper. Actually, the plane. I ended up getting the plane down there, which was much cheaper. Plane down to Birmingham, and that's not too bad. And,
no, I paid like really like £8 from London to Birmingham. Yep.
I want that kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not kidding. It was
I believe
so
you.
cheap because it was so cheap because I was planning the trip like with 3 months ahead. So it was really, really cheap. It was actually the prices were like in Poland almost. So I was really surprised.
What's the scene like in Poland, Lukasz? Like, are there a lot of conventions? Like,
we have few really big comic book focused events like conventions. Like one in Łódź, we had Jim Lee last year in Łódź. It is the international Jim Lee. It is International Comic Books Festival. We have festival in Warsaw, few smaller ones in other cities. We actually do one here, which is called Slime Fest, in Gdańsk. And they do some people start to organize so-called comic cons, the comic cons without comics, like with some people from Game of Thrones or some shit that. So I don't support this kind of stuff as creator. I don't support this kind of stuff as someone who has anything to do with comic books, and I don't respect these people and these festivals whatsoever.
Tell us how you really feel.
Cons.
My God.
yeah,
it's good because if you're going to call it a Comic-Con, make it about comics. Like, if you want to put some other convention, fine, but then it's not really a Comic-Con.
Yeah, you do have the problem in UK with so-called Comic Cons.
Yeah,
I've been going to like horror conventions just to get an idea, because Junior Braves of the Apocalypse is young adult horror, so I wanted to get an idea of if like tabling at a horror convention would be worth it. And those are really weird shows because they are, it's mostly people who are there to get more of whatever particular movie they're into. So they're not there to discover something new. They're there to find something that they haven't seen before with Jason on it. Or like,
because there isn't enough Jason.
Yeah, they are there for the thing they like, which is interesting. Like, I don't begrudge them, because like clearly, if I was going to a certain kind of convention, I would want the thing that I was there for, and not necessarily like to be exposed to something new. But it's interesting to kind of check out different, I guess, categories of convention to kind of see where things are. Like with Diamond Force, I may be more tempted to do like there's kind of a growing trend in the US of kind of nostalgia conventions, like ones that aren't just comics, aren't just movies, but it's like 80s con, where it's anything from the 80s that's relevant is at a convention.
So Stranger Things, the convention.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you like Stranger Things? You might also like The Explorers, this movie that came out 30 years before it. Or like, hey, remember that guy who was in that one movie? Like, you wanted his autograph? He'll sign the VHS. Like,
guys, we got MacGyver.
Yeah. Like,
And not the new shitty MacGyver, the good old MacGyver.
Old MacGyver. Or like, Linda Blair will be there. I'm like, Linda Blair's great. But yeah, so I'm thinking, well, Diamond Force, maybe like it would be worth it to table at one of those conventions. Be like, oh, hey, you like 80s exploitation movies? Like, you might like this comic. But
I mean, that's what I like about pop culture and that sort of thing. It's like the zeitgeist. Sometimes it looks forward, sometimes it's in the present, other times it does look back, and we get some great things. Like the thing I always point to is Indiana Jones. It's based off of pulp heroes and stuff like that.
Right.
But that came out not too long ago, and Star Wars also, in to a certain extent, even though it's sci-fi, so it's a bit distanced from that. But it's also based on Flash Gordon and stuff like that. And there are better examples you can point to. But the great thing is that you can always look to the past, but there's stuff being made now that is evocative of the past, but also brings something new to the table. It feels both new and old at the same time, much like Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a difficult balance and equilibrium to maintain, because if it's too old, it's just that people are going to be like, well, why am I reading this or watching this? I could just be looking at something else that came actually out from that era. Or if it's too new, then it's just like, well, this doesn't really feel like something from the 80s or whatever. So it's really difficult to get that. And I think you managed to do that here with Strike Team Codename Diamond Force. I will always say its full title. Now that
it feels wrong to shorten it, but like I get tired of saying the whole title.
Yeah,
like,
Diamond Force. I mean, that's fine, but Strike Team.
Like when you just say Diamond Force, it sounds like a superhero book. So saying like Strike Team Codename Diamond Force gives people an idea of like, oh, they might not really be able to latch on to like, oh, it's like an action movie thing, but it tells them that it's at least not just a superhero thing. Like it helps give it a context which they might not know, but it gives them something more than just like to write it off as like superheroes.
Yeah. And so speaking of superheroes, sorry. Go on.
Oh, I was going to say, like, it's interesting because we're in this kind of the ebb of the 80s nostalgia now, and we're starting to see a lot of 90s nostalgia. I'm an 80s kid, but obviously I also am a 90s kid. I don't really know what 90s nostalgia is going to be. Like,
there was a show that came out a while ago. It's about this lady who was about to get married, and I think she bumped her head or something, and she woke up in her own body as it was in the 90s, and she traveled back in time to the 90s and decided to live her life a different way, and that was very 90s nostalgic. But the problem is, I was born in 1992, so I was only in the 90s for about 8 years, and then I was in the early 2000s, and things got a bit distracting with everything starting to suck. So, yes. I can't really lay claim to being a 90s kid, and I definitely don't want to claim to be an early 2000s kid, because it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant, especially in the UK. Oh, God, they're the boy bands, dear God. I want to talk about something that actually not just looking back. If we're going to talk about looking back to that time, I want to talk about the comic adaptation craze that started in like the early 80s. I know a bit about it. I know like if there was something, there was a comic of it. Like I know there was a lot of A-Team comics and things like that, but also like of really not unpopular stuff necessarily, but more obscure stuff.
Yeah, it really was a period where like they were kind of grabbing whatever they could to kind of see, but none of it's really all that great. So it definitely seems like there was kind of momentary cash grabs by a lot of the comic companies.
Marvel especially did a lot of licensed stuff.
A lot of.
So it's like, well, and the like, it's really like in the research, there'd be like weird things by kind of there was still kind of in the late 70s, the early 80s, it had kind of died with the smaller companies, but you'd have like Gold Key Comics doing like the Disney, like one I always like to cite is the Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo got a comic book adaptation.
Oh dear God!
It's like, why was that a choice that they made to do a comic of a Herbie movie?
Why did they choose to make the movie in the first place? Jeez.
Yeah. Like, what? But like, of course, like Star Wars kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Star Trek makes sense in a way, but then you'd be like, well, here's.
The thing I read as a kid was. Oh, sorry. No, go on, Lucas.
But then you have like Marvel's Coneheads.
Yeah.
A few issues. Like I do remember Blackthorn Publishing did a lot of cartoons in a lot of cartoon-based comics in 3D, like Bravestar, G.I. Joe, Transformers. They were unreadable because they were like in 2 colors and it was 3D.
So well, I've got the glasses for that.
Yeah. I actually have this the Bravestar and it's crap. And it was a lot of crap, like tons of. Yeah,
just sell toys. That was what most of them were about, selling toys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the thing I read when I was a kid. Go on.
I was going to say, I think I had the Transformers 3D one, and I think I gave it away. Like I was like, I don't like this. This is like, this is weird.
I want a comic that I can read. Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't believe that it is comics in 3D. I don't know if that's ever happened over here in the UK. If it has, I never picked up on it when I was a kid. The closest thing I got to sort of that was when I was a kid. I did read, even though I'm a massive Batman and DC hater now. I read the comic book adaptation of all the then Batman movies. So the Tim Burton ones and the Joel Schumacher ones. They just adapted those and just put them from the movie straight onto the comic, basically.
Yes,
they like the 89.
They were published in Poland as well.
Yes, it's weird that they pretty much just did the movie again. There was very little deviation or anything. I mean, there are adaptations, I guess, but it was very weird reading them because even though I hadn't seen those movies at the time. It's just I could tell this is a movie. This doesn't have the same flow and stuff, and a lot of the characters look really like I know it's 2D printed and everything, but they looked really wooden because they just drew Michael Keaton's face from the movie, which is great when you're watching the movie, not so much when you're reading it as a comic. Because I can remember with the Star Wars and Star Trek. Sorry, yeah.
I was gonna say the artist would have to be really good at like photorealism to do like Michael Keaton yelling, but have it still look like Michael Keaton, but a yelling comic book face. Because comic book face.
It just looked like he has his mouth open, just like.
Yeah, it's gonna be like like these kind of like different angles of the same face. Yeah, I do remember like 2 things from the '89 comic book adaptation that I remember as being like, oh, that explains that. Was I think the bit about the money the Joker was dropping on the crowd being fake money. I think that's only in the comic book adaptation. It didn't make it into the actual movie. And then I think
it was something like that.
Yeah, and it explains that like when the Joker pulls out the revolver with the gigantic barrel and shoots down the Batwing. In the comic, it explains that it's an explosive shell, and that's why. Where the movie doesn't explain it. It's just
how crappy is his bat plane if it can be taken out by one bullet? Jeez,
yeah, one bullet. So I'm like, as a kid, like I was like, oh, that explains it. So I appreciated that, but also like, it is kind of a weird.
There was such a huge gap for me between reading that and watching those movies that I didn't really pick up on that. Thank you for pointing that out. And I can safely say that they're all crap. Okay, except for the first two. The Tim Burton ones, they were right.
I'm gonna say Batman Returns is not that good. Like I rewatched it and I'm like, this is not as good as I remember.
I think a lot of people have that opinion, actually, from what I've heard.
There's a lot of like good character stuff, but overall, like that movie, it's not that far off from the Joel Schumacher ones in terms of like tone and wackiness. Of course, there's no nipples on the bat costume, but still, like there's penguin commandos. Like that is.
Did you see
I
think the bird ones are more realistic and serious than they are, where they're really cartoony.
Yeah. Well,
did you see the Penguin Commando action figures?
They did action. Oh no!
Yes,
of course they did them.
Of
course they did them. Of course.
It was the set it is the set of made by Kenner, the set of 2 penguins with some torpedoes, as I remember, and quite decent stuff. I think it was the best toy made based on this movie.
Yeah, because they wanted to sell more toys. That's one of the reasons why Tim Burton had to be shoved off, because they want to make more Happy Meals.
The video game was quite good. The video game based on Batman Return. It was beat 'em up, I think.
Oh right.
Was that for Nintendo, like the regular Nintendo?
I think it was for regular Nintendo, and I think it was for Super Nintendo.
I feel like I played it on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, it was the time when the older consoles had the games still published as well for a few years, and now we have now.
Now things are better. Things are better. I don't know. In
terms of video games, no, they are different. No. Yes, I think that they are different. We agree.
Yeah, not better, just different.
Yeah, we people will look back on us the same way we looked back on those movies. We think we're different, but we're not really. We are, but it's just a different sameness in a way. But I think that's one of the reasons why Strike Team codename Diamond Force works so well. It's because it's not trying to reinvent the wheel or anything. It's just trying to be, as you say, a fun thing that will make you smile. And God, it really did make me smile. Now I want to talk about the Kickstarter. First of all, can I say I've seen a few Kickstarter videos for stuff doing just sideline, and also just on this show. You guys have got one of the funniest Kickstarter videos I've seen. It's awesome.
Thank you.
I highly recommend you check it out, Capers. I'm not going to spoil what goes on in the video.
I taught myself video editing and sound editing to do that video. I don't know if you can tell that it's very much a first-time project, but...
Actually, you know what I could? I mean, it seemed like one of those things that was perfect for this sort of project. And it is basically a couple of scenes from the comic with voice acting. Holy crap.
Yeah. Me doing several different voices and me wrangling my wife to do Sizzle's voice for her line.
Help me with this video.
It's a full comic. Voice. Yeah. She's like, I don't like it, and then, but
okay. Well, it is really funny, and I think that's one of those things. Like when you read it, it makes you smile, but it's not necessarily funny, as you say. But when it's said aloud, it's kind of funny. It's sort of like when if you were sort of like to riff one of these exploitation movies, if you were to talk over it and make fun of it, like when you're watching it, you could take it, well, not necessarily seriously, but you could also just like watch it as it is. But when you start to comment on it and really start to think about it, that's when you start to laugh.
Yeah.
Sort of like when you start reading excerpts from 50 Shades of Grey. Actually, that's just traumatizing. That's just... that's still going. Oh, God, we're almost through it. Last movie.
Last 50 Shades Freed or whatever. Yeah.
We're almost done.
My wife is a librarian, and she says those books are always checked out.
I'm so sorry. I was, a couple of years ago, right when they were first getting started, I think it was like 2012-ish, I was working at this bookshop in this village, Burford. It's really idyllic and twee and quaint, and I hate it. But there was this great bookshop in there, and I was working there in the summer in university, and I'd never heard of 50 Shades of Grey. I think I'd seen it a couple of times, just like in bookshops. And this little old lady totters into the bookshop and says, "Hello, do you have 50 Shades of Grey? I said, oh, I don't know. Let me check. Do. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't. Would you like me to order it for you? She's like, no, thank you, dear. That's all right. Bye-sies. And I keep on hearing about this 50 Shades of Grey thing. I've really got to check it out. So I look it up quickly and thinking, oh, God. Oh, God! That filthy granny! Oh!
Yeah. Just imagine that old woman getting her rocks off to 50 Shades of Grey light bondage. That's just enough to ruin everyone's day. You know, like, free to be you and me, that lady can, live her best life. But man, it is, I mean, there's the internet. Like, I don't really get why people feel like they should read that kind of I guess romance novels are nothing new. It's just weird.
It is weird. I mean, people read these things in like public places, on trains and buses, and in schools sometimes, and it's just like, really. And honestly, I've read a few comics like that. Thankfully, not the case with this one. I was worried, like, is this gonna go into some really sketchy, sexy areas? But thankfully, no. I've read comics like I used to read Savage Dragon quite a lot, and I read quite a few of them on a train once, and I eventually put it down and said, I can't read this here. I can't, not in public. This is not. I thought it was appropriate, but it's not. I get that you're free of the shackles of Marvel and DC image comic creators, but you don't need to go this far. You're overcompensating.
Yeah, Larson can go some really interesting places where it's funny, like I only like Eric Larson when he's drawing Spider-Man, oddly enough, but I got to see some of his original pages at an art gallery once. And really being able to look at his pages in the large format, I was like, oh, yeah, I could get into it. But yeah, Savage Dragon is that is a book for varied tastes.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
I was looking for a slightly less pretentious version of Spawn, basically, because I did try reading Spawn, and I thought, well, this is kind of cool. Oh, there's a story about Spawn, and he finds all these other superheroes whose faces are hidden in shadow, but we can clearly tell they're Spider-Man and Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, and they're talking about how they've been so mistreated, and he sadly leaves them behind. I wonder what that could be about.
I was a kid when that issue came out, and at the time, we my friends and I, we read it and we're like, oh wow, how did he get away with that? Whoa, we understood what he was saying, but now as an adult and as someone in comics, I recently reread that issue. It comes off as so pretentious. Yeah. Especially knowing that Todd McFarlane originally when Spawn launched, he was like, no, I'm not going to do Spawn forever. This is a limited, this is going to maybe run 100 issues at most, where he was so this isn't going to be some legacy thing. And now he's still milking that cow. More power to him. Man's a millionaire.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, Spawn, there's nothing wrong with Spawn. I think there's a new movie coming out or something, or a new TV show, something. So there's nothing wrong with that, but you don't have to be a dick about it. If you want to get away from Marvel and do things your way and differently, that's great. I completely understand that. But, again, it's overcompensating. But I do like the fact that you saw this guy's stuff in an art gallery. I think as much as, people are very quick to dismiss, comic book artists, graphic novel artists, I think we do need to see more art galleries in this, because you go on DeviantArt and stuff like that, and you see the most amazing stuff, the most amazing artwork, separate from all the pictures of Kirk kissing Spock, because that is what most of DeviantArt is about. But I mean, and going back to Ralph Bakshi, from what I know of him, he used to be a painter. He used to do all these weird paintings, and I just wanted to ask Lucas, is that something that you might be considering doing?
Yes, I'm doing exhibitions on regular basis. To be honest, I did more than 10 during last 2 years. Oh, wow. In various places, in library, in local library, but also on the second side of the country. in regular art gallery, and comic book art, comics related art exhibitions are usual thing in Poland. So it is good way to show your stuff in bigger format. That's the first thing. You can focus on panels, on separate pages, and it is some kind of advertising your titles. So if done good, if you can can show some videos like during upcoming exhibition we will show the video you talked about. The video from the video from Kickstarter. It's if you are doing some stuff like action figures, custom ones, something that you can sculpt and show the objects.
I love a Billy Chop Sang action figure. I love one of these.
I'm all for exhibitions. I do think that we need more.
Absolutely,
because that's the bottom line.
Absolutely, because we need to get your name out there. We need to get indie creators' names out there. That's partly why we do this on the show. Just because this is stuff that we like and more people deserve to see. Because it's just so cool. It's what it is, and I like the little touches in the comic as well. Because we could go on about the characters and the art style and the plot and stuff like that, and how it's also again evocative of the past and things like that. But then, like in the Kickstarter video, you've done like a coming soon sort of featurette sort of thing, like they did in the cinemas back in the day. And in the comic, you had ads that were used in past comic books.
Yeah, the idea was that for the most part, you could kind of be absorbed in the comic as seeing it as something that could have come out in 1981, complete with ads that are evocative of that era. And those were fun to do, to kind of work. I think in the preview copy that you probably saw is going to be a little bit different than the print copy, to where the ads are
being chipped.
No, you're getting yes, the free copy you got.
Yeah, I feel so cheated and used.
Are going to get. So the ads also helped kind of break up the pacing, Lukasz and the other artists who did the ads just kind of it all came together to really sell the premise of the comic, which is that this is a comic book movie adaptation for a movie you've never heard of and you've never seen, and this will absorb you in that world for however long it takes you to read 28 pages.
I did wonder, are these real? Is this part of the thing, or is this something else? I don't know.
I actually did look into seeing if there were some ads that the companies had kind of gone away and I could reprint them without worrying about legalities. But I did not feel on advice from my lawyers, they're don't risk it. Just commission new stuff. As there's one that appeared a lot in I think it was 70s comics mostly, where I think it was called Black Dragon Society, and it was a at-home kung fu training course from I forget what the sensei's name, but it was Master Satan or something like that. And I remember him so much from comics that I was given as a kid, that I am sure that guy probably is dead and that company does not exist anymore. And we probably could have reprinted those ads without any issue, but on advice from my lawyer. If you did something
like Hostess fruit pies, you might not get away with that.
Yes. And you I thought about the fruit pies one, but I think Marvel recently redid a bunch of those fruit pie ads with Deadpool, and it was oh, that's played out now.
Yeah.
So we did
if Deadpool does it, it's played out.
Exactly.
As much as I love the guy, he shows up, everyone knows it's time to leave the party. He's the Andy Dick of comics.
We get the Andy Dick of comics.
I'm referencing Family Guy with
use
that.
to describe it now. We're like, like if you really think about it, he's funny and he's talented, but do you really want to get involved with that?
You want to view him from a distance, you know? You know, maybe in a sitcom now and then, maybe in an animated sequel to a Disney movie, if you're into that sort of thing, which I am not. But it's not really something that you won't get too close. But I mean, I like it. And it's like, what it reminded me of, it's a bit Tarantino-esque with the ads thing, but it's also reminded me of that Grindhouse movie, Grindhouse. You remember the Grindhouse movie, Grindhouse? That's confusing to say out loud. But with, you know, Tarantino and Rodriguez that they did, and all those, like, fake trailers that they did.
Yeah.
Movie. The only one I can remember is, like, SS Werewolves with Nicolas Cage as Fu Manchu.
Yeah, it was apparently there was another actor who was supposed to be I think it was Nicolas Cage was originally supposed to be Hitler, and he's like, I'm not playing Hitler, and they're like, well, what about Fu Manchu? I'll play Fu Manchu. But yeah, like what was the other one?
Sorry guys, but playing Hitler is just a line that I will not cross. I play Fu Manchu though. That's another quid in the bad impression bucket.
It's just like with the Grindhouse movie that I kind of come back to that one because at the time I really liked Planet Terror and I actually did not like Death Proof, and now like Planet Terror I still enjoy, but I now appreciate Death Proof more because Death Proof is Tarantino doing an exact reproduction of a 70s car exploitation movie. And which those movies aren't good. Like, that's the thing. Those movies tend to be kind of boring, long breaks of not anything interesting happening.
Because low budget. What do you got to do? You got to fill out that time.
You're like, we spent all of our money on the car, so we're just going to do some, like, shot without permits location filming of the girls just talking. And it's too much of a good adaptation, but I now appreciate what he was doing. And that's why Codename Strike Team Diamond Force is meant to make you smile. Like originally it was going to be pretty straight, and then I was like, no, there needs to be some kind of like funny, kind of like.
Well, not even funny. Just this air of absurdity about it almost.
Right.
This atmosphere. Oh, sorry, go.
But you can also read our comic book without knowing the context. While Death Proof, while Tarantino's flick is getting better when you know the 70s background.
Yeah.
That's the major difference in my opinion.
Yeah, because I say I don't know many exploitations films on my end.
Yeah.
But I immediately got the gist of it, and like the first couple of pages is like, from the title even, you know what you're going to get. And I think that's great because it means you'd almost say that this is about this is a good like sort of a gateway into the exploitation genre because you can watch or read it like a cowboy comic book and you maybe get into westerns and stuff like that. And I tried to think of an example right off the top of my head and I couldn't. My brain is tapped dry. It's late where I am. What do you want from me?
Well, yeah, that's what I want. Is I want someone to like read this and then be curious enough to like, oh, you know, I've never actually seen one of those movies. I'll go check it out. Like, so yeah, like, I am hoping it is kind of a gateway into that world for people.
Yeah, and I think this is really something that you guys should check out. Now, the Kickstarter. How much longer have you guys got left on that?
Well, right now it's a little over a week, so I think it'll be just a couple of days by the time this episode hits.
This is coming out, probably just a couple of days. So get on it, Capers. Support this book. Get on it.
We are over 50% funded. We're like around 60-something%. So it's where I'm a little nervous, but not in despair. Like, I guess that's the best way to describe it. I still have people who owe me who still need to like who need to kick in on it. But like I'm get on it, back it. There's some great stuff. I think a lot of the poster prints are going to look great. And it's going to be a great book.
Cool. So what sort of rewards are you doing? What's the tier level on that?
So there's, of course, digital editions. There's a digital edition of Strike Team Codename Diamond Force. And then one of Lucas's book, Reckless Wrestlers, which is...
You had to think before
Lucas,
you said that, didn't you? You really
yeah, I
had
had
to...
because it's a V, so I was like, Reckless Wrestlers, which Lucas can tell you about that book.
Well, then tell us about it. Lucas, what is it?
It is as we call it, my opus magnum, yes.
Oh yes.
From 2015. It's about intergalactic tournament, wrestling tournament, and it is 150 pages of fight. Period.
Sold. I'm on board.
In black, white, it's fight. It's in black, white, and toxic green.
Oh, my favorite colors.
What else you can say? It's very. I wouldn't call it a graphic novel. More like grappling novel or something.
Oh,
it's a grappling novel.
It's grappling. It's grappling novel, ultra violent. And every chapter is another fight of the tournament. It's the idea was very, very simple, but the execution wasn't. So
worked for Mortal Kombat.
Yep. Yeah, it is heavily influenced by Mortal Kombat wrestling, mainly 80s wrestling, and some very bad fighting flicks.
We've all seen a few of those, believe me. Oh god, that's the thing with wrestling, is that there's so many wrestling tie-in stuff like now. Like they did like WWE or whatever did a tie-in with like the Surf's Up movie. Like they released a Surf's Up sequel. I don't
was
even...
a WWE like produced sequel. Yeah, like that is a weird movie.
Yeah, no. What's weirder though is Scooby-Doo. They crossed over with Scooby-Doo. I mean,
I feel like there's precedent for that because Scooby-Doo did meet the Globetrotters
and Kiss
like,
and Kiss.
Yeah, and Kiss, and so like, but yeah, Surf's Up. Is it Surf's Up 2 or Surf's Up 3 that is the WWE?
It's Surf's Up 2. I know because I saw the first Surf's Up movie and I actually really like it. I thought it was a pretty cool.
Directed by George Miller, director of Mad Max.
What is that guy? What is with that guy in Penguins? Jeez. I guess he just likes penguins. But it was a pretty cool movie. And then this movie came out, and it's like all the different wrestlers, and they're like some are penguins, some are otters. I don't.
Yeah, Vince McMahon is an otter, and
This is the world we live in. This is the fucking world we find ourselves in. There is no escape. Unless, of course, you read something good like Stripe Team Codename Diamond Force.
And other rewards, we do have, we're offering prints of the cover, and let's see.
It's a cool cover because you got the Moon Ninja guy, I forgot his name, Moon Ninja Master, like luring over everyone. And I've got to say, Lucas, he looks fucking scary in every single panel he's in.
He should.
He's a great character design, yeah.
Yeah, he looks...
It is just more scary version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder. It wasn't supposed to be like that, but after I drew him, he has something Shredderish in himself. So yeah, I would
someone ought
describe
to, because I
him
mean the goddamn new movies
like
didn't
that.
have any Shredderish elements about them.
Yeah,
There's also the good like the Italian like post-apocalyptic movies, like kind of his band, like I imagine his outfit is largely leather with like metal studs.
Yes,
so it's like that kind of.
I'm getting an image of Sean Connery in that weird thong
with Zardoz.
Zardoz.
He's wearing the diaper. I originally I did think about putting in a Zardon reference in the book, but it ended up not working. But yeah, so the
you need to be careful with references, just because there are some people that might, like me, that wouldn't get them.
Yeah, and then it just becomes like a parade of references. And then we're offering a print of the back cover of the comic, which is the fake ad for the Madame Wu and the Triad of Pain movie coming out on VHS. So we're offering some cool prints. If we make goal and we get some stretch goals, we're going to offer other prints of other ads and the alternative cover of the book. So yeah, there's some good stuff. There's also at the highest tier, there are custom Night Ninja action figurines available, and those are limited to 6 backers, and I think 3 of them are already taken. So,
well,
if
you
want
heard
to
the
throw
man,
in,
Capers, get on that.
Yes.
Jeez, limited edition. Oh, wait, I actually would quite. I think I saw a picture of those. They look quite good.
they're getting better. That's like the rough version. I still because I'm sculpting them myself and painting them myself. They are taking a little bit longer time, but they're going to look pretty good. So I'm hoping
You're a craftsman. You take time and effort.
I learned how to edit videos. I learned how to do audio. I learned how to make custom figurines. Although that was already a skill I already had, but I'm refining that skill. And then I'm lucky enough to have money to pay a talented artist like Lukasz to draw the thing I want. So
yeah. These men worked hard for your entertainment, Capers. Thank them in the appropriate manner by throwing money at them.
Yes, just throw money at it.
See him in the street, just throw money. It's fine. So, guys, I think we're going to end it there. Thank you very much, Michael and Lukasz, for joining us today.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
It's been really great having you both on. It's really logic. So be sure to check out Strike Team, codename Diamond Force. What's it? I nearly had it for a second there and then I lost it. I did well to keep it going for this long.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah. And if you Capers enjoyed the show, please tell your friends. Shout it from the rooftops. If you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other super episodes. We've done many interviews with many different comic creators. Like, I think the most recent one we did, or one of the recent ones we did, was In the Mind of James Fangal. There's a great comment by some great guys. Check that out as well. And you can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, or at PodCapers.com. We've got a Patreon, so check out the rewards. Patreon.com, place to hang your cape. You know where to find it. And if you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe you want to come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AP2HYC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses. Those are mine. And thank you, Capers, for listening. This has been PodCapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!